What's up, family? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking about something big. And honestly, that something shouldn't be controversial at all. But here we are. The Trump administration recently sent letters to major universities like Harvard saying, basically, if you want to keep getting federal money, meaning Americans' taxpayer dollars, then you need to follow federal civil rights laws. And suddenly some people are acting like the sky is falling. So let's break this down and from a childlike perspective. No yelling, no spin, just common sense. And let's talk about what's happening, why it matters, and what it means for all of us, not just students or politicians, but every American paying taxes, let alone every American investing in themselves, getting their education and looking to thrive academically to get a skill that is viable for the market so then they can take care of themselves, their loved ones, and so forth, right? But before we have a conversation, family, I want to preface the conversation not just by what I said, but also this video was happened on MSNBC. Check it out.
Using his own library of hundreds of books as the very first contribution to Harvard University, a Puritan minister named John Harvard created America's first university in 1636, 153 years before the government of the United States of America was created. Harvard graduates played a major role in the creation of the United States of America, including the second president of the United States, John Adams. More presidents of the United States went to Harvard than any other school, and not one of those previous presidents of the United States, whether they went to Harvard or not, ever attempted to seize control over Harvard University as Donald Trump attempted to do before he got crushed by the oldest institution in America today. The oldest American in that sense, Harvard University. Donald Trump and his lawyers threatened Harvard, as they have already to other universities, that they would be cut off from any federal contributions to the important research, including life-saving research done at Harvard and other universities, unless Harvard simply, in effect, made Donald Trump the president of Harvard. Donald Trump demanded control over the admissions policy at Harvard University. Donald Trump demanded in writing control over all hiring at Harvard University, from professors to the maintenance staff, to cooks in the cafeteria, to the football coach. Every single job at Harvard University was to come under control of the president of the United States. And the president of the United States alone would decide who should or should not be hired at Harvard University, who should or should not be admitted to Harvard College. Imagine Donald Trump sitting there in the Oval Office deciding who should be admitted to a university, who should be admitted to Harvard Medical School or Harvard Law School or Harvard Divinity School or the business school or the dental school or all the other graduate schools. Donald Trump wanted to control all of that. His lawyers sent a letter to Harvard on Friday demanding all of that control and demanding absurdly and stupidly vague things. Today, Harvard's president, Alan Garber, sent a mass email to the Harvard community, which includes everyone currently affiliated with Harvard and everyone who has graduated from Harvard. And he said, no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. We proceed now, as always, with the conviction that the fearless and unfettered pursuit of truth liberates humanity, and with faith in the enduring promise that America's colleges and universities hold for our country and the world. President Garber cited Harvard's ancient motto, Veritas, which is Latin for truth, and then said, seeking truth is a journey without end. No one working for Donald Trump can understand a word of what Harvard's president said today. In the Trump lawyers' threatening letter to Harvard demanding changes at Harvard, they kept repeating the phrase, reforms must be durable. That was their word, durable. Harvard has a lot to teach Donald Trump and his lawyers about what durable means. 389 years. How's that for durable? Harvard is much more durable than Donald Trump and his lawyers, and Harvard will be there long after them. The great circular idiocy of the Trump threatening letter to Harvard says that they insist, quote, the university must immediately shutter all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And in the same letter, they demand diversity, and that is their word. They demand, quote, hiring a critical mass of new faculty within that department or field who will provide viewpoint diversity. And so, in that Trump sentence, diversity is a good word. And diversity is exactly why Donald Trump is trying to take over Harvard University. That's what his letter says. And in another line of the same letter, they use the word diversity as a slur, as they usually do. That's how broken the brain of Donald Trump is. He doesn't know what diversity means. His lawyers do not know what diversity means, and they prove that by demanding diversity from Harvard University while forbidding Harvard University to pursue diversity. That is as stupid as you can get and have a law degree and dare to write a threatening letter like this to Harvard University.
All right, family. So you guys heard the spiel. I'm looking at it objectively from both sides, and what sides or both sides are actually saying factually from Harvard perspective and a Trump administration perspective, and just giving my opinion. But most importantly, having a conversation with you guys, and I'll try to give some value from a common sense standpoint to what I feel may be an effective solution for all. Because at the very end of it, I get it from a taxpaying citizen standpoint of being responsible with monies. And also, I get it from an American standpoint, let alone a university, to pour into Americans to get them the skills to be viable in the market to make this country better as a whole. So, as always, I'm just giving my opinion, and I just want to have a conversation with you guys. And I'm always open to the possibility of being wrong. So you can correct me at any time in the comments below. But like I said, we're just here to have a conversation on the situation. That's all. So, the basic facts. Here's what's really going on from what I'm looking at. Harvard and other universities have been accused of violating civil rights laws by discriminating based on race, sex, religion, and even political beliefs. From Trump administration standpoint, I'm talking from. Now, the federal government is saying you can't break the law and expect to get taxpayer funding. That's not how this works. This isn't about taking over universities. Nobody's trying to run their classrooms or pick their professors. This is simply, if you want public money, follow public law. That's it. That's the entire issue, right? So why are people losing their minds? And people freaking out. Some folks in the media like MSNBC, which we just seen in this clip, are spinning this like it's an attack on education or an assault on freedom. There was even a rant where someone claimed Trump wants to personally choose who gets admitted to Harvard. Come on, man. Let's be serious. This isn't about Trump buying Harvard or any one person. It's about standards. It's about protecting the basic rights of every student, no matter their race, gender, or beliefs. We all agree discrimination is wrong. So why is it controversial to say schools shouldn't do it? Right? And also I look at it from an anti-Semitism standpoint. Like it's okay for you to let your voice be heard in peaceful protest, and everyone has a right to protest, I believe, and let their voice be heard respectfully. But it becomes an issue when it leads to violence and destroying things, right? And not only just destroying things, but destroying resources, and individuals are attacking each other based on their beliefs with the anti-Semitism and stuff going on, where it's being advocated from a violent perspective, let alone the right way, in which you have every right in your freedom to protest and make your voice be heard. You know, there's been historical runs where protest actually was effective in playing a part in creating government, right? And I want to get into the letter now that he kept referring to. This is the letter, guys. I downloaded it. And getting into the letter that started all of this, here's what the federal government asked Harvard to fix, basically, right? And as you scroll down and you see things like government leadership reforms. So basically, the government is asking Harvard to fix based admissions and hiring, meaning pick the candidates not just based on skin color or politics, freedom of speech, allow different opinions on campus without fear of retaliation. That's what I mean by the anti-Semitism comments and stuff like that. Jews and stuff being attacked for their opinions. You know what I'm saying? So being diverse in opinions where actually different mindsets collectively bring different perspectives, what can be very valuable to the world as a whole to make the world a better world. What is the world if everyone was a monolith and everybody's thinking the same, right? Would that really be that effective? Because everybody just doing the same thing and thinking the same way. And that's the beauty of having a different mind and being uniquely yourself. And it goes into ending discrimination and discipline. Treat students fairly, regardless of race or gender, and stop promoting anti-Semitism, like I mentioned, which has been a serious issue lately. Protect whistleblowers. Let people speak up if something's wrong without being punished. And they also talked about dropping diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that push ideology over unity. And a lot of people have been saying, and the way I'm looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the whole thing is, you know, for a job, let's say, for example, I have a business. I don't care what color you are, what race you are. I don't care. I care what value you bring into the company, your skill set, and how you can be effective in my business, so my business can thrive. So I pay you for your time, and you in exchange for your skill set to help my business. It's the same way in sports, right? We don't care. We just here to compete. May the best win. May the best dominate. And at the end of the day, your skill set, for example, let's say basketball, my favorite sport, we all operate at our strengths while we continue to work on each other's weaknesses by competing with each other in practice, and iron sharpens iron, right? So if I'm a better defensive player and I may need to be a more effective offensive player when playing off the ball, then I can definitely watch my point guard and, you know, take heed of plays and see how to be more effective when it comes to working with the point guard and my other teammates on how to orchestrate a play or construct a play where my role can be effective in creating a play in the play in. So then I know how to wrap around and cut through a pick, get around a pick, cut down low in the basket, and keep moving on the floor effectively than just standing there where the ball needs to keep moving and people needs to keep revolving, and the movement needs to stay consistent and constant, so then we can have opportunities to open up the score to win the game, right? That's how I look at the whole DEI, the DEI stance against DEI programs, right? And these are not extreme demands. These are bare minimum of fairness and legality, in my standpoint. And I'm just scrolling through the policy the letter that the Trump administration sent to Harvard. You guys can look through it on your own. I'm just scrolling through it as I speak, and I have basically summarized it up from my take on it, and which I'm explaining to you guys right now. And if you got some value from this video, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. It's a 5-page letter, but let's go to also here's what really hits home when it comes to taxpayer accountability, right? Um, Harvard has a 50 billion endowment. That's right, billion with a B. But they still take millions in federal money every year. Your money, American taxpayer and citizens. So the real question is, and I ask you guys, should a university that's breaking civil rights law get a check from taxpayers? Let's flip the script. If a business was caught discriminating, should they still qualify for government grants? Of course not. So why should Harvard or any other schools be treated differently? And that's how the Trump administration is looking at it from a business perspective, because I do believe that you have to operate the country like a business, because with a business and from a business perspective, if your business isn't doing good and it's in a negative, obviously you need to make the adjustment so you can thrive. And also business perspective in its entirety, and it takes your mind to another level and thinking logically and not emotionally. Because once your emotions get involved, you tend to make messed up mistakes or self-inflicted wounds where you hurt yourself. And in this case, when it comes to leadership, like a president, if they're so emotional and making decisions on the best interest of Americans and it's supposed to be for a good cause, they will make self-inflicted wounds because their emotions are getting involved and actually being logical for what's best for us Americans. you know and if you want to truly be independent, that's fine in Harvard's case or whatever, college, go private, right? I've been in private school, my private experience, Catholic private school. I've been baptized Catholic. Run your school your way, but don't take taxpayer dollars and then say you can't tell us what to do. That's not how this country works, right? And you know, it takes this is what Harvard had to say, and it's what the president had put on their tweet, on Twitter, well, formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. President Alan Garber. And then this is Trump freezing um, the money in regards of Harvard funding, 2 billion after university rejects demands, right? So the bigger picture, right? This is bigger than Harvard in my eyes. This is about whether we want fairness or favoritism in our country's top institutions. And it's about whether we want young people to be judged by their character and work ethic, not skin color, gender, or political views. It's about protecting freedom of thought, not silencing people because they don't get along with the crowd. And we need colleges to be places of real education, not indoctrination. And if the government can't even ask schools to follow the law before handing out money, if the government can't even ask schools to follow the law before giving out money, we got a serious problem because if they could take their money but they can't follow the government when it comes to following the law, then that can be like the school modeling for students to not in a way, students could look at it, young students coming in as a freshman in college, be like, oh, my university don't follow the law, so why should I have to? Right? Set the tone because I always was taught the way my private high school, my college prep school is I represent the institution outside of the institution, even if I'm not at school, I still represent the school. So the big takeaway is this is not an attack on education. This is not about right versus left or Democrat versus Republican. This is about wrong versus right. This is about right versus wrong. Right versus wrong. If a university wants to shape the future, they should be held to the highest standards, not the lowest. They have our most highest scholars, and we have the most beautiful, amazing, articulate, educated, smartest professors and administration, you name it, right? And look, if university wants to shape the future, they should be held to the highest standards, not the lowest, especially when the American taxpayers are funding it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Should universities that break civil rights laws lose their federal funding? Should schools stick to education and stay out of politics? Would you support a school that focuses on merit, fairness, and free speech? I want to hear from every side, okay? Let's keep it real and keep it respectful, please. And if you find this helpful, give this video a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's tired of all the noise and wants to talk common sense. And thanks for watching, family. Hope you guys enjoyed this video truly. On that note, family, let the love supersede the hate. Spread the peace, love, and positivity. And on that note, family, peace.